Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'll discuss to you on how to use the TextField widget to our Flutter project. So let's start. Okay, so in our body, we'll be adding a child property in our container. And then we'll be calling the TextField widget. Then in our TextField widget, we'll be using the decoration property. And in our decoration property, we'll be using the input decoration. So the input decoration will be used to customize our TextField widget. So to add a label to our TextField widget, we'll be using the label text property of the input decoration. So the value of the label text is string, as you can see now on the suggested value for the label text. So for example, enter value or enter num1. Then Ctrl S. Then let's check the output. So we have a text field here. So we can type a value for the text field num1. Okay. So to add a padding on our text field, so as you can see, there is no space on the left hand side of our text field. So we can add a padding to our container so that we'll have a space on the right and left of the text field. Okay, so in our container, we'll be adding the padding property and edge insets widget dot all, and let's say the value is 5.0. Then Ctrl S. Okay, so there is a space or there is a padding between the container and the text field. So let's continue. So in here we just added the label text. So we can also add a hint text. So let's say comma hint text. Okay, so we have the hint text property here. So let's say in here enter num1 or value for num1. And then in here num1. So we'll just label it as num1. Ctrl S. So let's check the output. So we have a label here which is num1, and then for the placeholder enter value for num1. So placeholder is just a temporary. So once you type the value of the text field, so the hint text will hide. Then if you remove the value for the text field, the hint text will appear. Next, if you want to add an icon on our text field, let's say in here we will be adding an icon before the value. So we can do that under input decoration, comma, another property is the prefix icon. So let's say icon, icons dot so in this example we'll be using an icon temporarily. Let's say info. There's no info. Home, add. So later on we'll just explore some of the icons available here. Appropriate icon for our text field. Since the requirement is a number, let's say, okay, so let's scroll down so you can see the output of this icon. So we have, let's see, something that is related to our text field. Let's say this one, money. Okay, so we'll be using the attach money around there. Okay, so let's try it. Control S. So the difference is we'll have an icon here, a prefix icon, okay, before the value and the label. Okay, let's try that. Okay. So we can also add a suffix icon on our text field or suffix text. So in this time we'll be using the suffix text instead of suffix icon. Okay, so we have another property which is the suffix text. So in here we'll be adding a text. So suffix text, let's say 0.00. Okay, Control S. So we have a suffix text here. Okay, so we implemented the label text, the hint text, the prefix icon, or you can use the prefix text. And we also implemented, or we also use the suffix text in here. Okay, so 0.00. Now, how to get the value of the text field? Okay, so when I type a number here, let's say 100, and I click a button here, or I press the button here, which will be added later on, it should display the, or it should print the value of the text field. Okay, so let's try that. So before that, we'll be adding first the button. So in here, we'll be wrapping the text field with column widget. So it's a container that arranges its child into, or vertical arrangement. So let's just click on this one, and then automatically the text field will be enclosed with column. So after the text field, we'll be adding the, let's say, flat button, and then on the on press, and then our child will be using the text widget, and we'll be naming it to submit. Let's, for example, submit. And into our on press property, in our onPress property, we'll be printing the value of the TextField widget. So to get the value of the TextField widget, we need to define a text editing controller here. So text editing controller, and then let's say for example num1 is equal to text editing controller. And then num1 will be assigned as controller for the text field. So controller property, and then we paste the num1, and then num1 will be called in our flat button on press property. So num1. Okay, so let's say we'll be adding a description here, and we'll just concatenate the num1 value. Okay, so we have a num1.text. That's a num1.text. Okay, and then the value for num1 is colon num1.text. So we need to rerun our application, so because we made a lot of changes in order to refresh the UI of our application, including the behavior of our application. So let's try our application. So we have the submit button here. Okay, let's check. So for example, I'll be typing 100, and then I'll be clicking the submit button. So as we can see in our console, it displays the text. The value for num1 is 100. So 100 is the value for the num1, which is our text field. Okay, so we'll be changing the value, for example 90. Then click the submit button. So we have the output here, which is the value for num1 is 90. So that is how you can get the value of the TextField widget. Okay. Next, as you can see, we can also customize our keyboard or our on-screen keyboard. So since the input is a number, so we need to restrict our input from numbers only to prevent some errors. Let's say for example, if we allow this kind of keyboard, the user will input a invalid, because the user can input letters, okay, instead of numbers. So we can also control the on-screen keyboard in our TextField widget. So we have a property here called keyboard type. In our keyboard type, we will be calling the text input type. Text input type. Let's say for example dot number. So we have a different values here that we can use. For example, if you want number, then we choose number. If you want text, we can also use the text. Date, time, email address, multi-line, name, phone, street address, URL, values, visible password, number with options, and so on and so forth. So in this example, we'll be using the number because that is the requirement. The app will only allow the user to input a number. In order to prevent some errors like inputting a text or letters, we need to filter our keyboard by using the keyboard type property of the text field and by calling the text input type widget dot number. Okay, so let's try our application. So let's save our application or just restart our application to make it sure that the changes that we made will be applied to our application. So let's check to our emulator. So we have here, let's say example. Okay, so our keyboard becomes number. So in here you cannot input a letter anymore because you specify that the keyboard type is number. So the only allowed is from 1 to 0, comma, and the dot or the period. So let's say 90. Okay, and then click the submit button. So the value for num1 is 90. Let's say 75. Then click on the submit. So the value for num1 is 75. So that's all. Thank you for watching. See you on our next videos. God bless.